No! Watch it!
That is Zeus's barrier! The goals of the legendary bladers of the 4 seasons have become one! Listen! Seal Nemesis within the barrier! You must do it right now!
L-Drago!
But why, Ryuga?
The strongest Bey in existence that should reign over this world is not the god of destruction. It is the Dragon Emperor L-Drago! All of the power you gathered from the star fragment will drain into L-Drago. I can feel it! This is the power that I have been seeking all this time. Now, at last, the strongest ultimate dragon will be born, and it will be all mine!
You fool!
What?
This scene has always intrigued me. Why does L-Drago, the Beyblade known for its ability to absorb the rotation speed and power of a Bey, end up being the one that gets absorbed? I suppose it's dramatic irony, but there must be a specific reason as to why prototype Nemesis is able to absorb L-Drago's star fragment rather than vice versa. For those of you who are new here, I'm Emerald Miner, and this channel is primarily dedicated towards Pokémon Wi-Fi battles, but before I started playing Pokémon, I was actually a huge Beyblade Metal Series fanboy, and collected nearly every Beyblade from Metal Fusion to Zero G. Don't ask me about Beyblade Burst though. Anyways, the other day I was thinking about this L-Drago and Nemesis question, and decided to see what people were saying online. There were a couple videos that seemed to have the answer, but unfortunately they were not in English, so I decided to put my 2 cents into the conversation about an anime series created to make kids buy toys that ended nearly a decade ago. And to answer our question, we need to establish exactly what it is that allows L-Drago to absorb a Beyblade's power. Initially, when Ryuga had Lightning L-Drago, it was its left rotation that allowed it to create the cogwheel-like system with a right rotating Bey, but this system wouldn't exclusively benefit L-Drago. In theory, both Beyblades would increase in spin speed, which we see highlighted in this scene.
By using the opponent's power, Pegasus is increasing its rotation speed!
Or so it seems, but let's see what Ryuga and Doji have to say about this.
There's still one more reason L-Drago is known as the Forbidden Bey. Well, you see, Jinga, at the moment of impact with an opponent, L-Drago uses that secret dark power to absorb its opponent's strength.
Jinga attempted to use L-Drago's power to increase the power of Pegasus, but the opposite happened. Every time Pegasus did battle with L-Drago, it actually lost some of its own power. How unfortunate.
And so, as it turns out, it's the dark power that turns out to be the real secret sauce that makes L-Drago work, and became the Forbidden Bey. But let's see how it came to be in the first place.
Once upon a time, a star fell from the sky, my friends. There were 2 fragments of the star. The first fell in the birthplace of Beyblade, the town of Coma Village, and became Pegasus. And the other was passed down among powerful people who burned with ambition, making its way through the world's greed and eventually becoming L-Drago. The true form of the dark power was really the ambitions, desires, anger, and greed of humans that were absorbed and increased by L-Drago throughout its long history. However, in the end, it was a power really created by human beings themselves.
Ryuga goes on to say that because it is a power created by humans, he is able to overcome it since he's a human being himself. However, we get more context to the same history from Ryu.
Long ago, long before the Bey Village, a large star fell from the sky on that spot. However, that star was not the only one that fell, my friends. In an unknown, far-off land, inside the star that fell on that land was hidden an evil, dark power. The people of the day were enchanted by that power, and from a fragment of the star, they created an evil top that would become the foundation for L-Drago. The evil top was somehow able to absorb the people's feelings of desire, anger, and hatred. Then it turned those feelings into dark power. And with that mighty power, it was able to control the world of war.
So much dark power.
Alright, so from this history, we get the impression that L-Drago has some sort of inherent evil dark power, which was further increased by human beings' greed, anger, and hatred. This discrepancy feeds into philosophical discussions about nature versus nurture, the origin of good and evil, etc. But for now, let's just follow along with Ryu's account and go from there. We later see that Medio L-Drago is able to function without the dark power, still absorb the power of another bay and increase its own spin strength, but it does so using its own power rather than the dark power.
What kind of bay is that thing?
That is Ryuga's Meteor L-Drago. It steals the opponent's spin strength and turns it into its own spin strength. What could once only be accomplished using the dark power, now can be done using only its own power.
It's the power of the rubber-coated energy ring. The rubber on L-Drago's energy ring acts as a cushion, and it absorbs the opponent's power. So no matter how many attacks it takes, none of them will be able to stop it from spinning.
And then L-Drago changes the stolen power into power for itself. It's hard to beat for sure.
And we see this play out in real life, as anyone who's played with Beyblades knows. Medio L-Drago, you can spin it with your hand and it can easily spin steel. Because of the rubber, which makes it spin steel more efficiently. But in the past, L-Drago could absorb the actual power of a blader using the dark power. Can he still do this with just the rubber alone?
Huh? Is L-Drago spinning faster than it was before? What? L-Drago is absorbing Orion's power with the rubber on its fusion wheel. If Orion continues spinning forever, then L-Drago can continue absorbing that power forever.
And that's not all either. L-Drago absorbs an opponent's power and makes it its own. If this goes on, even the power of the star fragment contained within Orion will be stolen by Ryuga.
Alright, so L-Drago Destructor, which is just the evolution of Medio L-Drago, is still able to absorb the power and turn it into its own, as with the star fragment. But is this still just the rubber, or does Ryuga still possess the dark power?
And if it's a power created by humans, then there is no reason why I should not be able to overcome it. Through rigorous training, I freed myself from its control. I became one with the vast power of the cosmos that fragment of a star originally held for the first time.
Pegasus's power is being stolen. Ryuga, do you still hold the dark power?
The dark power, you ask? I have no use for something like that now, Jinga.
Then what is this?
The power of L-Drago itself!
What are you saying?
It steals its opponent's spin strength and turns it into its own spin strength! Now Medio L-Drago is able to do the same thing the dark power did on its own!
Alright, so during Metal Masters, Ryuga claims to have overcome the dark power, and even tells Tsubasa that his dark power that's in his Earth Eagle is the last piece of it left from L-Drago. I believe that becoming one with the dark power, he has removed the greed from his heart, and we see that in Metal Masters, Ryuga has grown as a character, willing to become somewhat of an ally, helping out Tsubasa, who he infected with the dark power, and helping Jinga Master Galaxy Pegasus. We never see the dark power or any aura present around L-Drago throughout Metal Masters. He backslides in Metal Fury, however, and begins to become corrupted once again, as seen in this scene.
So in order for me to rise to even greater heights myself, I will take control of it all with my own hands!
What?
You don't get it, Ryuga!
Watch this. Just prior to this scene, both Kiyoya and Jinga fought against Ryuga's L-Drago Destructor without their power being absorbed. Chris here is battling him, and his star fragments being absorbed by the red aura. Here in Metal Fusion, as we all remember, anytime there was any absorption with dark power, it showed purple. Here we see that L-Drago's own dark power is signified by being red. It's completely separate from the dark power. It's using its own inert power being fueled by greed. Now remember, Kenta here shows up, and he's the one that stops L-Drago from fully absorbing the power. And we see that in this scene, L-Drago begins to, for the first time, show a blue aura. The first time that Ryuga actually goes to do something selfless. I think there's a connection between what you do with that power. You know, it goes to back to showing, you know, you can use a tool for something to be both good and evil. Here he's using it for good, and it's symbolized by the blue, the same color that we see in Pegasus. I think there's a connection there. I just thought about that for the first time. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, but red symbolizing greed, blue symbolizing selflessness. The purple, I think, is just the pent-up dark power as it begin to ferment over the years. You know, all those years of anger and hatred combined all led it to be purple. Alright, now that we have L-Drago covered, let's talk about the history of Nemesis.
Star fell from the sky.
Huh?
The Beyblades of today were born from the unknown power possessed by that star.
That's the legend told where I'm from in Coma Village.
The legend about the origin of our base, is that right?
The story I'm going to tell you now took place several thousand years earlier than that. There was another star fragment that had already descended on this planet.
Several thousand years earlier?
Oh yes! That star fragment encountered the black sun, which orbits our sun in a 26 million year period. During the star fragment's amazingly long journey to Earth, it absorbed a certain amount of negative energy from the black sun itself.
What? That's not good.
Luckily, the negative power of the black sun did not immediately fall into the hands of humans. As a result, a great Bay civilization, not unlike that of today, flourished several thousand years ago with the Bays born from that star fragment.
There was an amazing Bay culture in ancient times?
Unfortunately, those peaceful days did not last forever and ever. There was one part of that star fragment that was filled with the power of the black sun that was brought to the ruler at the time.
Alright, pause. I feel like I've seen this before. Hang on a second. That purple glowing rock? Just the same as the meteorite that fell that was the foundation for L-Drago. They both have this negative, evil energy inherently inside of it.
Hades. The negative power draws out a person's wickedness. Hades gathered the power of the black sun from the star fragment and created the strongest Bay, Nemesis. Using that mighty power, he punished the people who did not agree with his tyrannical ways.
Punished? What do you mean by punished?
He destroyed all those who dared to oppose him. He attempted to create an ideal world for himself and his twisted ways.
Monster!
Horrible!
However, the power of the Black Sun was far greater than Hades could have ever imagined. Nemesis began an out-of-control rampage, becoming the god of destruction, bent on destroying the entire world.
Yeah, this story is having some familiar beats. Absorbing the people's feelings, turning into something that wants to destroy the world. Very, very similar to how L-Drago functioned in Metal Fusion. They even have that same purple aura. Remember how I was talking about the auras before? Yeah, very similar. So let's see what else Dynamis has to say.
Each time people have made the same mistakes and had the same evil battle.
The power of the star fragment can be used for good or evil, depending on the one who possesses it.
So people who want to use the power of the star fragment for evil, like Doji and Ziggurat, have always existed, am I right?
And each time, the battle between good and evil is fought again. Nemesis has been secretly absorbing the power of those evildoers and preparing for its own revival.
Alright, so this dark power of Nemesis, it's able to absorb the negative energy from these events that have happened, whether it be from the L-Drago crisis or when they were dealing with Spiral Force. It's absorbed the negative energy from all those events. So clearly it has the same powers of absorption as Ryuga's L-Drago, which was able to, whenever Ryuga was in a coma, awaken after absorbing Jinga's negative energy. So they function very similarly, they both crave destruction. Let's see what other parallels we can draw from them. Alright, so as we can see here, Nemesis is able to absorb the power of the star fragments, and not only that, when it absorbs the power, just like L-Drago, it is able to increase its rotation speed, very much in the same way. But how does this technology work exactly?
Bay's possessing the same power of the star fragment battle. That power is carried from the stadium to someplace else.
So basically, Nemesis functions like a lightning rod or like an energy sink because of its dark power, and the energy is able to flow through these circuits of the temple and into Nemesis. We've seen Beyblades be able to put out energy before in the case of Twisted Tempo, and Doji even states that the design of Spiral Force was based off the design of this temple. But why exactly do they need the temple's design to be able to assist in obtaining the power of the star fragment? Shouldn't it just be able to absorb it like L-Drago does? Well, hang on. There's a conversation that Madoka had with King that pretty much explains the concept.
That's so weird! He didn't do something like that when he battled me before!
Well, that's because Barrieris uses the same reverse rotation.
Oh, I see!
But Chris's Orion uses normal rotation.
So bays with the same rotation, they can't absorb each other's power, you see. So Nemesis still rotates to the right, because I guess those dudes that created it didn't ever think about it rotating to the left. I think maybe that's why L-Drago might have been based off the design of Nemesis. They both have the same dark power, but maybe they were thinking, oh well, we need to make it rotate to the left because we've seen what this dark power can do before, or it could have just been through random coincidence. Either way though, Nemesis rotates to the right just like 99.9% of all Beyblades. So in order to make it still absorb, it needs the power of the temple to assist in bringing that power directly to it. And we get further evidence of this from the Ryuga and King battle, when he even gets flustered by the fact that King is a legendary blader, so we can't absorb his power.
Don't tell me that you're a legendary blader!
So let's put everything together for a second. I believe that Nemesis and L-Drago both contain the same dark power. Now, as Dynamis stated, the meteorite that fell to Earth with Nemesis' power came several thousand years before L-Drago. I'm not going to dispute that. So, the odds of two meteorites both going through the black sun and landing on Earth is incredibly small. But I want to say that's still what happened, just because they keep repeating the same mantra about a new pit of light becoming a new pit of darkness. They both crave destruction. They're both able to absorb the power of Beyblades using their dark power. They both have purple auras, and even whenever that power is transferred to Tsubasa or even Doji, they both have that same purple aura and repeat the same mantra. It's almost as though there's one entity that has its own sentient brain that is truly in control whenever someone is overcome with a dark power. And I believe that that entity is the Black Sun Nemesis. So, even though it might not have been planned out originally in the show, I think that's the way that it ended up being. Makes me wonder, what was Doji's motivation exactly for going after L-Drago? They could have known that maybe it was almost like how Galaxy Pegasus led into Storm Pegasus. What if Nemesis was the thing that inspired L-Drago? They both possessing the same dark power, and one being the evolution of the next, as you'll see in this scene here.
You! I was a fool to believe that you could in my wildest dreams have been any sort of replacement for someone like Master Rago. Compared to Master Rago, you're absolutely and completely nothing at all.
Not so long ago, after learning about the Forbidden Bay L-Drago, we used the Dark Nebula organization to send you to Coma Village.
What was that?
We had hoped that you would be able to control the dark power.
L-Drago, it's showtime! Huh?
However, it turned out, as you know, that at that time you were not yet ready.
Stop it!
You were controlled by the dark power and went on a rampage. So our plans to awaken L-Drago and obtain its power ended in failure. It was quite a disappointment.
I see now. You're the same as that piece of trash Doji!
Oh no. Don't put me together with that Doji who became overwhelmed by the dark power and lost sight of the true goal.
The true goal, of course, being to revive Nemesis, the god of destruction. I think that Doji thought of himself higher than he actually was. I mean, you see in those scenes he's eating pizza with a knife and fork and orange juice out of a wine glass. I think that he might have gotten some cash from Hades Inc., and he found himself in a position of wealth that he hadn't been before, and you know what, he got too greedy and he thought too much of himself. So he thought that he would instead, rather than be a henchman, bring about the new world himself with Ryuga and L-Drago, and he would be in a much higher position versus if he was just a henchman going to find Rago. So he found Ryuga, he got him to be trained on L-Drago, which was basically the Storm Pegasus to Diablo Nemesis, which is the original Galaxy Pegasus. But eventually, because of this, Ryuga absorbs his soul and puts it into L-Drago, and Doji clearly has not forgiven him for this. He's still very salty about it, and that's why he goes to take it out on Ryuga now, and he clearly sees the error of his ways in propping up Ryuga as a false god and calling himself a fool for his previous actions. And just as one final scene before we get back to L-Drago versus Nemesis, there's a scene in Metal Fusion where they basically describe Nemesis and Rago, but clearly Doji has decided to simply go with L-Drago because he thought that was all that they needed.
They have been used to defeat many armies and create huge empires. And one person is even said to have used that power to control the Earth and bring on natural disasters.
Even back in episode 13 of Metal Fusion, they were talking about what would become Nemesis and that blader being Rago. I think that Ryuga could have potentially destroyed the world if he'd continued on with Lightning L-Drago and had actually beaten Jinga. They probably would have succeeded, but the light of hope just came through that plot armor, delicious, nutritious, and it stopped them. So, now I hope that I've convinced you that L-Drago and Nemesis, like I said, are inextricably linked through the same dark power coming from the Black Sun that they both must have crossed through on their way to Earth. And now that we've examined that, and that they're basically left and right counterparts to one another, let's return to our scene in question.
I can feel it! This is the power that I have been seeking all this time. Now, at last, the strongest ultimate dragon will be born!
Alright, so as we can see, Ryuga's aura around himself is red. He's absorbing the power of the star fragment from Nemesis. They both are cloaked in this dark power, as you can see. I believe that this is going to signify the fact that they're both competing over this fragment. And as of right now, L-Drago is winning because it has both the rubber and the dark power active, and it is rotating to the left where Nemesis is rotating to the right, so everything is cooperating as it should.
And it will be all mine! You fool! What?
Now we see that the flow of energy transfer has reversed. The polarity has reversed. Why is this? Well, I think that there's two possible options. One being that Nemesis's desire for revenge and all this stuff that they say later on is almost like an amplified dark power. You know, it's even stronger than L-Drago's motivation just for greed and power. You know, they want to destroy the entire world and get revenge. So their motivations could be what take them over the edge. You know, we've seen in battles before where it's the motivation that helps you win. It could also be that because Nemesis has already collected 9 out of 10 star fragments, that's what truly takes it over the edge. And compared to L-Drago, even with its rubber and being infamously known for being able to absorb power, they both have the same dark power at the end of the day. And when you're backing it up with 9 out of 10 star fragments versus L-Drago, which only has 1, it's no contest. Of course Nemesis is gonna win.
Someone like you cannot hope to control this much energy. It has become the God of Destruction's power. Your power will be offered to the God of Destruction as well now! Impossible! L-Drago can't lose! And now all the power of the star fragment has been collected at last! Now show us your true and terrible form! Diablo Nemesis! It has been revived at last. This is the Black Sun itself, the God of Destruction, Diablo Nemesis.
You also notice that Rago tells Ryuga that he can't possibly hope to control this much energy. Perhaps Rago really is capable of holding more of the star fragment than Ryuga could. You know, I don't know if he truly is higher than just a human being, or if Rago is just a guy that is exceptionally strong, and it's all a matter of strength. But remember, whenever Ryuga had Lightning L-Drago and after he absorbed Kyoya, you know, he went crazy. You know, it's almost like he had too much power, more than he could control, and that caused the dark power to overwhelm him. Versus Rago, who he's got 9 out of 10 star fragments on his side, and he's just fine, he's calm, cool, collected, dark power isn't controlling him, and he's able to simply control Nemesis. And I think that might be the final reason why he was able to absorb that power. He's in full control of the dark power and can amplify it using the star fragments in order to overpower Ryuga's dark power. So I think that's going to be it for today, folks. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I do a lot of Wi-Fi battles, so if you want to see those, stick around and let me know if you want more videos of theories like this. I'm not really a theory YouTuber, but I just figured I'd put in my 2 cents, like I said, because I hadn't seen any videos like this in English. But hey, let me know what you think. You know, why was Diablo Nemesis able to, or I guess Prototype Nemesis at the time, able to overpower Ryuga and L-Drago for the Star Fragment? We'll catch you next time with a Wi-Fi battle. Bye-bye.